everybody, it's EK from EK Gorman Designs, and I'm coming in today for a tips and tutorial video from Oddball Art using IMG328 Madhatter. I'm using my Prismacolored pencils today to color the image in, and then I'm going to turn the card into a mixed media card. Something a little different for me, but something I do on canvases all the time, so I don't understand why I don't do it on cards more often. I started off my skin tone here, and when I work with colored pencils, I start from dark to light, and then I go back in and add any more dark I blended too much out. So I don't necessarily work through all the pencils 2 times, but I usually work through darkest to lightest, and then go back in and add back in the darks that I need to. For anybody who doesn't know me, I am the biggest Alice in Wonderland fanatic. I am obsessed with Alice in Wonderland, and I wish I could give a really firm answer why, but I can't. I don't fully understand why, except for I love the fairy tale version, the fairy tale-ness of it. And I would not say my favorite character is Hatter, but I think Hatter presents such a fun catalyst in the whole story, because it's not like he's not one of those characters we only meet once. No, he comes back for the trial, thus making him a figure of some importance, because his opinion has mattered in the trial. And I'm making way too much out of this. I am perfectly aware I'm making too much out of this. But anyway, when I saw the collection of Alice stamps over at Oddball, I just got so excited, because these images are Alice in appearance, but not necessarily traditionally an Alice image. And I mean, obviously it's a Hatter who's a girl, which is all kinds of fun. So I've spliced together a couple different Alice pop culture images and decided to go with the wonky Tim Burton flaming orange hair from my Hatter. But I wanted to make sure I pulled that orange into multiple places within the coloring. So I didn't just do it in the hair, I did it throughout her outfit, giving little touches of oranges. Despite the fact that the orange in the hair is the focal, you see what I'm doing. When I use a color or a combination of colors, I try to use them everywhere, so that way it doesn't seem stark that it's in one spot. I kind of like to spread it across the entire coloring image. I do this when I work with my markers or my colored pencils or even watercolor. If you're going to introduce one color, you need to introduce it into multiple areas. Otherwise, that one color seems out of place. And I'm just going through and quickly adding in these colors. I like using this really, really bright yellow, to really emphasize the orange. In the end, you don't notice it's yellow, it just feels that orange all the way through. Again, kind of going off of your classic Disney Hatter, I'm giving her outfit that dark green look of the classic Disney Hatter. And somewhere in the coloring of this, I was like, ooh, I need to introduce a third color. And I was like, I've got orange and I've got green. What is that third color going to be? And I started thinking my color wheel, because if you're confused on what colors to use, stop what you're doing and go back to the color wheel, because the color wheel can almost always solve a problem for you. And of course, in the thinking about my color wheel, I immediately went, obviously, the third color I should introduce is purple, because then I can use a triad of colors that are equally placed apart on the color wheel, and orange, green, and purple obviously are all secondary colors that are mixed by mixing 2 primary colors, and they logically go together. While no one naturally thinks, oh, purple and green and orange, it's very pleasing to the eye. So yeah, not a problem in deciding what color to use for my third color once I started to really think about it. When I pulled out what I thought was going to be my light shade of green, it was really more olive than I intended. And to solve that stark oliveness that I have going on here, I pulled the grass green that I'd used, that mid-tone green I'd used, and kind of went back over those olive tones just to put a little bit more green in it, and then pulled my darkest colored pencil out and re-put in my dark shadows, just to really add a nice contrast between things. So here comes the purple, and like I said, there's not a whole lot of places for the purple, but there's enough that it makes sense. Oh, before somebody asks, I know somebody's going to ask, why do I have washi tape on the ends of my colored pencils? Prismacolor pencils are not all light fast. And I use my colored pencils for more than just card making. I use them to make some actual fine art. And when I'm making fine art, I want it to be light fast. So I only use my colored pencils that are, in fact, the top 2 categories of light fatness. So those are my light fast colored pencils are the ones with washi tape on the bottom of them, and all of my pencils are marked with what degree of light fast they're considered. And it's a 1 to 5 scale, 5 being the worst, 1 being the best. And yeah, that's why the washi tape is on it. Just so I can, at a glance, without having to pull out a chart of some kind, know what colors I can and can't use when I want my project to be archival quality. My cards, I don't care. And that's the other reason I haven't separated the light fast colored pencils from the non-light fast ones, is because when I'm working on my cards, I don't care. A card is something somebody opens up, they enjoy for a moment. Some of my friends will hang them or keep them, but for the most part, it's disposable. It's not something someone necessarily will hold on and frame forever. So I want to be able to use the full spectrum of color when I'm coloring on my cards, but I want to be able to know very, very quickly if I'm working on something that I intend to be archival. I added just a touch of red for the sole reason that it's Alice, and the cards need that hint of red, the Queen of Hearts, and all that goes along with it. I had intended initially to make each of the arrows its own sign, like I make a bigger sign that each of the arrows were sitting on. And then I went, no need to, and just added a big wood post for the arrows to be a part of, and just quickly colored it up. You can't read it, or at least from this angle you can't read it, but the little arrows say over there, this way, and tea party. So it's completely pointing you in completely different directions for each of the signage, which I love, because everything about the Hatter is wonky. As you can see, I'm kind of trying to drop some shadows in and drop some wood grain into the post. In the end, it didn't work, and it's just a failure on my part. Failure probably being too strong a word, but in the end it didn't work, and I didn't go back to fix it because it was okay. The Hatter's the focal image, the sign is not. So the fact that the post didn't come out the way I wanted it to was fine. It was okay. What I did need to fix though was I needed to add starker, heavier lines to the signage to help it stand out, because I lost too much in the creation of the post. The arrows just kind of disappeared, and I didn't want them to disappear completely. So I pulled out my 0.2 black pen and just kind of quickly gave the post a border, for lack of a better word, at black edging, and then I went back over the arrows and the lettering to help them pop a little heavier than they were. My handwriting is not nearly as cool as the handwriting in the digital stamp, but I tried as close as I can to make it work. So I decided at this point that I was going to make this card more of a mixed media style card. So I pulled out this die set from Crafting Desert Divas. It's just a scalloped edge with a dash mark in it, and die cut on both sides of the 2 images. Then using my scissors, I just trimmed them apart. And I pulled out some paper and started trying to find some printed paper to use along with the image. And I kind of wanted to pull some of the colors out, like that green and that purple, without being green and purple, like without being too obvious. You'll see I spent some time looking at green papers here, and in the end decided to go with brown, because that's a completely new color, but brown here is working as a neutral. I I trimmed the first paper up so it would fit onto an A2 card and adhered it to a card frame. And that's score tape. That's hands down my favorite adhesive. It's score tape. It just holds like nobody's business. And I added some score tape to the bottom. And yes, of course, I always seem to get too long. and added the, see, now I had to think because it wasn't enough. I needed a little craft paper to create some kind of border on the bottom, and that actually helped emphasize. And I trimmed off the excess. Notice I didn't put anything under the bubbles, any tape under the bubbles, because I wanted to be able to tuck the hatter and the signposts into the scalloped edges. Now you have to play watch me figure out where everything goes, which is, it takes too long. Anybody who does this, who tries to take everything apart and put it back together, knows that there's lots of wiggling things around and trying to figure out where it goes. And yes, I made too much. I cut the paper down so there was too much, but I did it intentionally knowing I wasn't exactly certain how much needed to be cut off. So there we go, I'm adding the brown on. Ignore my mistakes because I make them, and I make them regularly. Trimmed everything down and started tucking the hatter in between the two sets of scallops. Which was fun because I wanted her legs to drift under it, but I didn't want to lose too much of the hat. And then you get to watch me make a massive mistake, which I then fix. Yes, I make mistakes, and I do it regularly, and everybody just needs to accept. I don't know, I have a pet peeve when you watch videos and everything's always perfect. I wanted the scallops here to stay big and loose, so I just glued down the edges so it wouldn't fray up too much. That was a Tim Holtz sticker set. I love the sentiment, when nothing is sure, everything is possible. And I think for Alice in Wonderland themed card, that's incredibly true. I wish I could tell you where this cool pink, it's not even close to pink, mint green, bluishy color ribbon lace is from. No idea. It's one of those things that's in my stash. It's been in my stash forever. I have a lot of those things. You're about to see a whole handful of them come out and watch me play. I don't know where they're from because I tend to collect little things whenever I find them and throw them into storage buckets. And when I want them, I just dig through. I knew I needed something heavy to weigh down that upper corner because of how unevenly things are spaced in the card. I also had no idea what I wanted to put up there. So now you get to watch me play what could go in the corner. I started to say I hate when card makers show cards and it's always perfect and everything's always perfect and everybody edits out all the mistakes and the nuances or makes the card twice because of the mistakes and the nuance. Let's be realistic. Everybody makes mistakes. And I like showing my mistakes. I like showing that I make errors along the way and I don't necessarily know where things are going and I don't know how to do something and I don't know which direction I should be taking things in. With all this embellishments, I realized pretty quickly the arrow was perfectly acceptable to keep in the card, but nothing else seemed to be working, and in the end, just that little white flower was all I ended up with. When gluing heavier stuff, especially like the metal pieces down, I pull out my gel medium, and no, I'm not putting the lock on, I'm just using the lock to weigh down the flower, so it will glue in. The arrow is heavy enough that it will glue itself down. And then I pulled out a green crystal. I keep all my little crystals in these little bins. And some liquid adhesive. I think this is Glossy Accents. Just to glue the little crystal on. Ta-da! And that, my friends, is the final card. I hope you enjoyed seeing me how I colored, not only how I colored up today's cards, but watching me go through the thinking process of how to create a mixed media style card. If you like what you're seeing, click the dragon up there. That will help you subscribe to my channel. And if nothing else, give a thumbs up letting me know you liked seeing what I'm making, and I'll make some more of them. Till then, happy crafting, everybody. Bye.